It is August 10th, 2016. Welcome to the meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to address the board this evening? Seeing our thin audience out here, I'll just repeat that quickly. Anyone else? Okay, no. Moving on, our next item is approval of minutes. Are there any edits, comments, corrections to our meeting minutes of July 20th, 2016? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the special meeting dated, special meeting of the Board of Finance for July 20th, 2016.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda are reports. Our first selectman.
You get to go first,
Good
right?
evening.
So I have a number of things written down. I'll briefly go through them and beg for questions if you have any. First of all, we're having some personnel issues in the town hall. I'll start with our assessor's office. Donna Beckett has tendered her resignation. That's our town assessor. And we are working together to find a replacement. And we are about to post a job on the assessors council. They have a group of assessors get together, and also we're calling other area towns and people in the industry. So we'll be looking for a town assessor. Comes at a tough time with DMV problems, which seem to be nagging and constant, a reval coming up as well. So, mighty shoes to fill as well. Donna served our town for at least 15 years in our town. I'll move to our tax collector's office. John had an illness with his heart. I'm sure it was a heart attack, but our tax collector is going to be out for an extended period of time, and he is recovering and he's doing well. I'm happy to report. Our town clerk is also on an extended medical leave. This is the second time in probably in about 3 years, and it'll be an extended leave. As you know, the collector and the clerk are both elected positions, so they don't have time on the books. They're out when they're out. So we're scrambling up here. We're too short for sure, and of course we're dealing with vacations and all that, but we're getting through it. But we're doing everything we can to keep the lights on and just get to the next day, the next report that's due, etc. It's slowing us up a little bit, but I give kudos to Ramona and Sarah in the tax collector's office as they gather up as much information as they can. Our auditors are starting their process, and we're trying to get them as much information as we can before John comes back and can finish the deal. A lot of things that need to be done by our tax collector. But we have able staff. Okay, so that's what's going on here at the town hall. Upstairs, I'm sure there's more issues elsewhere. Romagna Road, that's the Old Town Public Works area. Those buildings are scheduled to be demolished tomorrow. Is that still on schedule, Jeff? Tomorrow? There's two buildings there along Roxbury Road and the one next to it, demolished tomorrow. That area will be regraded, re-landscaped, and reworked, and that was all part of discussions we've had in the past year. It was a promise that was made when we moved up to Capitol Drive that we would return that to a better state, not to a natural state, because we'll still have the big barn, the old salt shed will still remain.
The salt shed there, though?
We'll have the salt shed, and it's an old barn, and it's a little rustic, and it might be, and we've done some work on it. And of course, all the buildings up top will remain, where Care and Share is, where our water and sewer department exists, and all the storage up top. But down below needs to look better. We require our developers to come in town and have ship-shape looking space. And meanwhile, it's a town property that's very visible from one of our main roads, and it doesn't look very good. Needless to say, it's also in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So the people on Romagna Road have been promised this cleanup for maybe a dozen, maybe a couple dozen years. We're finally getting to it.
That's great.
We're paving roads all over town as part of the road paving project. In addition, as you know, as we approved, we're in the process of getting ready to pave Bush Hill neighborhood. It's a separate project. It's a big project, and we're getting ready for that. We're finishing up the paving job and the above-ground tank installation up at Capitol Drive, where we've put a salt shed, a salt dome in, and we have an above-ground fuel tanks, and we're repaving that whole parking lot in front of that building, and then we'll be re-landscaping there as well, and just tidying up that property as well. Massive engineering is continuing at Cheney, for the Cheney Park bathrooms. It's rather complicated because we're trying to dovetail that into a project that the Water and Sewer Department have also identified needs to happen, which is sleeve. We have a pipe that goes under the Niantic River that carries all our waste to Waterford, then to New London. And that's just a pipe that's sitting out there. And it's as old as our sewer system, which is about 25 years old. We'd like to sleeve that. And that's a Water and Sewer Department issue. You'll never see that at this commission. But when that's happening, or we put a second pipe in as a backup, one of those two, we're looking at both. We could do that while we're doing the Cheney Park thing. We're also working with the state because we'll have to dig up the road from about where Dad's is all the way to the entrance to Cheney Park, the driveway down, and it's longer than you think. It might be not quite a half a mile, but it's a quarter of a mile, and both sides of the road would need to be dug up. Where the state also has a plan to rework that road in another couple of years, and we're trying to move their schedule up, move ours back, and meet in the middle, so they'll pay for the paving. Mm-hmm. So we're working that out. Guys downstairs are marvelous when it comes to these kind of things. Gordon Pond sidewalks, we've been doing some engineering, some survey work. We'd love to get those in. Beth, you started the sidewalk a long time ago, coming up, but of course the reworking of the sidewalk along the pond is difficult. And we're working on surveying it and coming up with a plan. And then there's a lot of federal.
As long as you don't disturb that turtle.
Yeah, I know the turtle.
Yeah.
I know. So, I know. And of course, there's a dangerous turn there too, and the state has always talked about, never really committed to, straightening out that road a little bit around the turn as well. We're waiting for the grant money for the demolition of 224 Main Street.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Could you just go back to the Gorton Pond sidewalk?
Sure.
I didn't really understand where you said we were in that. We're doing
We're
engineering
doing
studies?
survey work right now,
Oh.
so that we can come up with a plan. So then we can go for either grants, so we can go for grants to try to build it. There is a lot of federal money out there for walkways. Pedestrian walkways, especially linking one area of town to another. There's a lot of that kind of money available. We need to be engineer ready. We need to, not quite shovel ready, but to the point where we can say, this is our plan, this is what it's going to cost, this is the linear footage, and this is what will work at this site. And if we can go there, then we can go to a grant.
The bucket I would think of is transit-oriented development.
There's plenty of them out there, and that's one of them.
That's becoming expanded use for that, and I know that.
I have
great idea.
Courtney, and they're all ready to go with this as soon as we can
good.
get this together.
So we have Courtney in our corner.
We have everyone in our corner.
perfect.
Senator Famika was the one saying, "Can you get this thing done?"
Yeah, because it's
Because
only
I can
like a quarter.
introduce it.
It's only like a quarter of a mile or something, right? It's not very
Well,
long to connect.
you know, the bigger picture is down East Pat Road as well, because that's the full connection. Because when if you only connect Gordon Pond up to the intersection, what have you really gotten there? Well, you can stay on
You
156.
can take it all the way to Niantic Center School from East Panaganza.
But we want to
You'll
get it down
Safe
East
Schools
Pat too,
money,
and we think the same grant could connect, because that's the straightaway, and that is a direct route to downtown.
Great.
So,
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah.
Will this involve eminent domain at all
No.
for some
Well,
of those properties?
I shouldn't say. On the properties on East Pat, there would be, of course, we have
It's a
an
right-of-way.
easement
Right-of-way.
along both sides of the road for purposes like this. There are some tricky areas to East Pat, especially as you get toward the cemetery. There's that hairpin turn there as well, with ledge on one side and houses right along the road on the other side.
I'm just wondering down the road if we're gonna be looking at having to come up with money to maybe buy some property to get that done.
No, I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it. If so, that would be part of the grant.
Usually, the town will own a
Yeah,
certain
we
amount
own at least
from
5 feet on
the
each
center
side.
line,
Joe
right,
can help us
yeah.
with that. Yeah. I started talking about 224 Main Street, the mobile station. We're waiting for the actual delivery of money. Sometimes that can take a while. Of course, we were awarded $200,000 for the demolition and the cleanup of 224 Main Street, and that's an ongoing process. We had talked about during budget season, the phone bills were getting kind of out of hand in one building and one department. It's 1% higher, and in another. We need a new phone system in this building. We've identified a couple different vendors who will deliver the phone system and in the bill for about the price we're paying now.
That's good.
Okay, maybe a little bit more, but we have in our capital plan, I think $30,000 or $35,000 for phones. That would go away. We wouldn't need capital. We'd be able to fold it into a phone bill, which is a whole lot better, and it would be around the same price. We're working on that. We're waiting for vendors to get back to us with prices. But that's nowadays what happens on the Nutmeg system with a VoIP system. So voice over the internet, and we already have the Nutmeg fiber optics in all our town buildings, or many of them. We're still short, I think, a few. Massive engineering on the Saunders Point sewer system. You should at least be aware of that. It is something the town would also have to have on its capital, because we share some of that cost as we expand our sewer system. There'll be a town's cost. There'll be a resident cost, and that would be in the next couple of years. And we're working on that.
And then part of it's the water and sewer costs, the
Yes.
tie-in. It's a mandatory tie-in, or is
It's
it
not a
an
mandatory
opt-in?
tie-in. It's
Opt-in.
once it's down there, it's an opt-in. Yes, it is an opt-in. Research. We're researching into the camera systems, security camera systems in all the town buildings, or many of them, and that's ongoing as we speak. It's been identified as we need to do that. Police department security upgrades that we talked about at this commission level last year, about the window, a secure door. That is now we're going out for bid, and we're trying to put that together. The band shell, as you know, is appropriated. We expect that to be done in 60 days. Parks and Rec meeting tomorrow night. Have invited the public to come in. Those who have criticized, the crowds at the beach, or how the rules, the procedures, the regulations, the parking issues, the out-of-towners, there's people with opinions and good ideas and criticisms, and have invited them to the Parks and Rec Commission meeting tomorrow. You might want to warn Pat. And it's on their amended
thank
agenda,
you.
and it will give the public a chance to speak directly to the commission that makes the decisions, how much the price should be, et cetera, et cetera. And it would be good, I think, to go directly to the source there. I wouldn't expect many people there, frankly, but that we're giving the public the opportunity. We expect the Costco application in the fall. For final site plan approval. I think the summer months hit, and I think it just took kind of a backseat. And I think they're working on their plans down the coast a little bit, Branford or wherever they're building the one before this one. They kind of work linear. They build one, then they go down the coast, they build another one, much like Walmart did to build their empire. The schools are considering a refurbishment. That was the discussion at the Board of Ed meeting the other evening, is a refurbishment plan instead of a rebuild or a new school plan. I think we'll be invited into those discussions. I think they're very preliminary at this right now. They're just kind of talking about how they're going to go about doing that. There was a study done, as you all remember, 5 or 8 years ago, the Castle Booze study that identified the necessary repairs to all 3 of the actually all 5 buildings. They're just looking at the elementary schools right now. They don't know if they're looking at 3 or 2. Right? I think that's feedback that would have to come from this commission if we're going to hold them to 2 schools being funded for operations going forward, and they're kind of still figuring that out. But I think I would encourage you to engage in your commission board members from the Board of Ed, or be paying attention, watch their meetings, show up to them. Okay. So as you can see, we're doing a lot of implementation. We talk about it for 6 months, we implement it for 6 months. Joe will say we implement it for all 12 months, but we get very, very, very busy in the summer and the fall seasons, and that's where we're at right now. A lot of balls in the air, and we're getting it all done. Any questions?
Yeah, I
know there
have
was
one.
a lot.
How was the public invited to the Parks and Rec meeting? How was that communicated?
It's on the agenda, and anyone who sent me feedback, either through Facebook or my email, I sent a note out inviting them to this meeting on Thursday. Doesn't have to be the last one. I think just direct feedback from the citizens is good. I get it
Put it on the sign
from this
out.
level. Dave Putnam gets it.
Put it on the sign out front.
No, generally we don't do that. It's just another commission. It's not a forum.
Okay.
It's just an opportunity.
It's just like an agenda item.
It's just an agenda item.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next item on the agenda is a report from the Board of Ed. Jamie, are you here from the Board of Ed?
I'm not here for the Board of Ed, but as of September, you will have a representative.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is our Finance Director.
Yeah,
Good evening.
Good evening. So this evening, I provided all of you an updated draft for the July revenues, and I had indicated we still are awaiting some receipts from the tax department to complete the posting. So I didn't do the typical monthly highlight report that I do because of this. But I will point out to you that if you just want to look at the revenue report quickly, it's when in looking down the year-to-date revenue, it would be the same information that I would highlight for you on the monthly report because it's only 1 month. So, you can scan
Right.
down and see where, the larger receipts for the month were. I will point out that we did, on the second page, if you look all the way at the end, where it says insurance reimbursements, we have our insurance with with Kerma, and for the last few years, they've been giving distributions
Good
to all
idea.
of their members if you continue with them. So our share is $30,440.
So that's a mutual insurance like a mutual
Well, it's a
company?
yes,
So that's like a dividend that they pay back
yes.
after paying all the claims?
They put stipulations on it, and it's not quite like a typical mutual company, but it acts like that.
And I have a question on the revenue. So, okay, I do understand that there's more money that we've collected that's not
Right.
reflected here yet. But
Right.
is the late fee currently 1.5% per month?
Yes.
That's pretty steep. So that's 18% a year. So I imagine that gets booked in the interest and liens lines
Yes, that's correct.
for current and prior. Okay.
Hmm.
I just want to watch that carefully to see if people are falling behind more this year than in previous years. I mean, I don't expect you to answer that, but I guess I can go back and look at the trend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what would be, I don't understand the liens, how we get income from liens. Just for my own information.
Okay, so when, at a certain point, at a certain point in the delinquency process, for the real estate, the tax collector files, in the town clerk's office a lien on the property. And so at the point in time that they come in and pay all their back taxes and get current, they reimburse us the lien fee.
Okay, it's just paying off the lien.
Right,
That's-
exactly.
Okay.
And to
All
get
right.
it released, right? So that extra money is the release of the lien?
Well, the release of the lien goes to the town clerk. but they pay for the cost that we had to pay
To put that lien on, okay. And so you can't carry it in a different section as a reimbursement on the taxes, or paying the taxes, you have to take that amount and put it on another,
This is how we set it up to
Yeah.
book it in this account.
okay, yeah.
So is that tracked separately on the expense side? Like, if we incur expenses for when we place liens on properties, I don't know if there's attorney's fees involved with that or anything?
Well,
Or
the-
does that just go in a general bucket
Well,
for attorneys?
The attorney's fees, we're paying them as we incur them, and there is, there is a line item, you can see where we show attorney's fees. So typically, when you see a revenue in that account, it is from, a tax
A
collection item.
reimbursement.
Yeah, and then we don't, I don't project it because it's just, it's difficult to know what it's gonna be from one year to the next.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Anna? I have just one on the expenditure report
Mm-hmm.
for the engineer inspector line. So I see we've already used 49% of that budget. I'm on page 4.
Yes.
Can you share with us what that's for, and do we expect to go over in that line for the year? What's that all about?
Okay,
Alfie?
so, the reason for the high level of expenditure in that inspector account, that is the position that, in the budget process, it went from a full-time position to, a part-time position. And the prior employee that was in the full-time position, when he retired, he had some leave time on the books that we had to pay out. And so, we charged it to that account. And in speaking with Mr. Bergois, his intention is for the fiscal year, to stay within the budget line there. And the engineering services would primarily be needed when we're doing the road work. So there are months that, during the winter and stuff, that we're really not doing that work, so we wouldn't have the need to have an employee on hand to do that work for
Mhm.
us.
Do we have plans to revisit that policy of being able to, I suggested that instead of allowing people to roll over 6 weeks vacation or whatever, then when they leave, they have to leave with a bucket full of cash. And I suggested that, in the private sector, many of us can't do that anymore. And it would be an area for us to look at to become more on a level playing field with the private sector and see if we could just ask our employees to take their time on the books and not roll it, so we're not hit with a big encumbrance or liability when they leave. Are we thinking about doing that?
It's a subject we could always broach.
Okay.
I would caution that, it is in our collective bargaining agreements. We're talking about unaffiliated, those non-union workers, who would like to remain non-union.
Yeah.
And if we tamper with their contract too much, we've made promises out there for decades, that you're hired and this is how we conduct business, and when you retire, this is your little nest egg. If you don't use it, if you come to work, instead of taking all your vacation time, you can cash it in. I can't do that. My employees can't do that either. You can't do that in the private sector, but in municipal government, it's typical. It's something we could talk about, and it's something we could look at, especially going forward with new hires. We're about to hire a new department head across the hall at the assessor's office. That contract can look different than the contracts that we hired our current assessor at. But too many contracts and too many deals on the table can also get difficult to deal with when you're talking multiple employees, and eventually, I don't want to see them feel like they need to be represented by a union. That I would hope this town would just take care of them fairly. This is part of it. Listen, we underpay. We are not on the top of the scale of pay rate, and we can go right down the list. This is one of the benefits we do offer.
All right. So
It is a subject we can talk about.
All right. Is it a subject we will talk about?
Sure.
we'll look at that this year and consider going forward, looking
The
at vacation, time on the books, and just see, is it something we want to do? That's something we can take on together?
The unaffiliated group meets before July 1st every year. We meet with them and talk about the next year's gross wage increase, talk about the health insurance, copay, et cetera, et cetera. It is a subject that we can bring up.
All right, so you will bring it up to talk about. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sure.
Great, thanks.
Well, it is interesting because I think the police made some headway in that area just last month, correct?
On
I-
overtime, I think.
I don't remember that specific area. I could be mistaken.
The
There were-
police made headway in that area?
Yeah, there were 3 items that they went back and sort of renegotiated. One that comes to the top of my mind is
State
require-
police?
No, our town police.
The
No.
3-man rule.
We're not in new negotiations with them right now.
Talking about Sergeant Malik and what he was saying, he made savings in how you use comp time, or how much notice you have to give before you give comp time versus
Oh.
I'm taking comp time and then you're down 3 on a shift, and then you're bringing somebody else in, and you're doing
We
an
were holding them
overtime,
to the
or you're
letter of the
holding somebody.
contract. We were
Right.
holding them to the
Yeah.
letter of the contract,
Yeah.
the black and white of the contract.
Right,
And we
right.
had let the past practices slip away. We brought it back to the letter of the law there.
Well, there was also,
There was no
where they
give.
required more than 24-hour notice if they were going to call in
Right.
sick.
Correct.
Otherwise, it needed to be covered in a different fashion. So a lot of this was done just willingly, I think, outside of the terms of the contract.
And if it was short notice on the comp time, they were to use their vacation day,
Yeah.
I think.
Which is how the contract reads.
Right.
So we don't forget this, all right? And we may not be completely in the same place on this, but I heard you say you're open to discussion on it. I'd like to keep the discussion open. Can we put something on the agenda so we don't lose that? Because I know what'll happen for me. It'll fall right off my stack. So I'd just like to put it under old business. I don't know how we want to word that, but consider policy with new hires, however you want to word it. I just don't want to lose it, and I'd like to have it go on the agenda.
How about leave time?
Perfect. Whatever tickles us to come back and visit this. That'd be fine.
It doesn't tickle.
Thank you. Anything else from the board for
No,
Anna?
I'm fine.
All right,
you.
thanks.
Did we, we had another open item, what was the purchasing and
It's right
bid? Oh, I'm sorry, this
That's
is why.
okay. We're gonna talk about that
All
tonight.
right, great,
Yeah,
thank you so much,
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Save your question for that if you don't mind.
not a problem.
Okay, moving on to new business. Our first item is a special appropriation for an ICE grant program for a truck.
Yeah, Joe Bergaz here, our Director of Public Works, and he'll talk about the ICE program and the grappler truck that we're looking to purchase.
Great.
Joe?
Exciting. New truck.
Thank you for having me tonight. Some of the things that I know I need to do for my job is obviously look for ways to save money, and another one is to look for efficiencies. And, you know, in this world with regionalization and why does everyone have to have the same thing and everyone has it, is looking for either departmentally sharing or other towns sharing. It's an interesting concept in the Northeast because they don't like usually to do that. But we just did the thing with the mini excavator, which worked out well. We worked with the water department and the highway department. This opportunity came along. I've talked to the
I
board
remember
about it,
it.
about the AC grant. It's a grant where if you partner with another community, the state will pay 65%. If you partner with a distressed community, they will chip in 80%. New London came to us. We're interested in getting this grapple truck. We see a nice need for being able to use that, picking up large stumps if there's any kind of big storms.